Hey guys, welcome back. In last lecture I explained you ESLint configuration. In this lecture we will continue with computed properties. So let's start. I will close this file and we can navigate to our app.view. Let's go here and I have assignment for you first. So let's see assignment. And here is assignment, create a functions to fetch user and to fetch categories, same as we did with activities. Call these functions in a created lifecycle function. So let's see our app.view. We have here our fetch activities, and I would like to fetch categories, and also I would like to fetch user. So you can provide here just an empty object for a user and categories and create a new functions in our API. Similar to this one, call these functions in our created lifecycle, so here, and assign our data, the results of these functions, to our data here. You can console log out, so just to make sure you are getting here any data. You can stop your videos and you can start to work on this. And I will work on this right now. Okay, so this task should be very simple. I will go to our index.js and I will create here a new function. So export const and fetch categories. Okay. And also export const fetch user function here, perfect, and we can return here our data. So return and return here. I will go to our app.view and let's get this data from here. So let's see, we have here one user, so I will cut it from here. I will provide here empty object, perfect. Let's provide our fetch user here, amazing. Let's indent it. And also our categories, so let's see, categories. Let's copy them, cut it from here, empty object here, index.js, and let's provide these categories here, perfect. Now let's go to our app.view, let's write here this user, fetch user, okay, and this categories, fetch categories. Okay, and just to make sure, I will console log here this user, and also I will console log here our categories. So these categories, perfect. We need to import these functions. So fetch user and fetch categories, perfect. Save everything. We can check our linter. No linting issues, perfect. And let's see our browsers. So let's inspect and we should see console log with our user and categories. So console, we have here two objects and this one is user. You can see here my name and ID, perfect. And this should be categories, yes. We are getting two objects with a text, books, and the second one is a text of a movies categories, perfect. So that was it for assignment. I hope you have been successful with this mini assignment and we can continue with computed properties and I will explain to you on example. So let's go back to our coding editors and I will make this button, our new activity button, disabled. So let's find here a new activity button. So new activity, and actually not this button, but create button for our form. So I will find here form for our new activity. Here is the ending tag for a form, and here is our button to cancel form and to create activity. So I will create here a new property. All right. So just under class, I will write here vbind. So vbind, and this will be disabled. And now let's assign here a true, just to see what will happen. So this disabled for this button will be true, so this button should be disabled. Let's go back to our browsers. Let's click here new activity, and now you can see this button is disabled. Okay, let's go back. And as I showed you before, you don't need to write here vbind, but we can use here a shorthand, so I can remove vbind. And I just can provide here disabled, and this will be exactly the same. So when I will go here, this will be refreshed and it's disabled still. Perfect. But we want to disable this button according some condition. So let's go back to our coding editors. And I want to disable this button if I don't have values for our new activity. So if I don't have a title and also nodes. This very simple check, you can write here in a disable this conditional check. So if we don't have a new goal activity, new activity title, so new activity title, or we don't have new activity nodes. And I'm saying if we don't have, so I need to provide here exclamation mark like this, or instead of this exclamation mark, you can check if we don't have a title, so you can check here for a empty string or something like this. But I think the best and most readable way is to provide here exclamation mark. So if we don't have a new activity title or we don't have a new activity nodes, then we want to have this button disabled. So let's verify this. Let's save this. Let's go back to our browsers and let's see. Okay, so new activity, it's disabled. I will write here some title. Still disabled. I'll write here nodes and it's enabled. Perfect. I will remove disabled. Okay, so let's go back. And one more time, let's take a look on this expression. What we can do here, we can move this expression to separate function, and instead of providing these properties here, I can call here this function. So I will copy this. Let's copy this and let's scroll down. So scroll down, let's create here a new function and let's call it isFormValid. IsFormValid, like this, and I will return from here this expression. And actually form is valid if we have a new activity title and we have a new activity node. So we can change a little bit this logic. I can remove exclamation mark from here and like this. So if we have a new activity title and we have a new activity nodes, then it's form valid. What I can do now, I can copy this name and I can call this function up here inside of our disabled attribute here. So let's find our form. Okay, where is our form? Disabled here. Okay, so I will remove this expression from here. I will write here isFormValid. I will call this function and I will provide here exclamation mark. So if form is not valid, then it's disabled. Let's check this. Okay, so new activity. Let's see, and now we are getting some errors. So let's see what I did wrong. So console log here. Alright, new activity is not defined, of course, because I need to write here this. As I told you before, we need to access this data on this context. So like this. Alright, let's go back here. I will remove this. And now let's see, new activity is disabled, still disabled, now it's enabled. I will remove this and it's disabled. Perfect. And if you are still not very sure about this logic here, new activity title, new activity nodes, I will provide you example here. Now let's inspect this page and let's open here a console and I will try to simulate the state we have in our application. So let's create here a variable called nodes and this will represent our value. So I will write here that's true. And also title, and this will be true as well. And let's write our expression from a code. So if we have our nodes and we have our title, you can see this will evaluate as a true. But I will write exclamation mark in the front. This is a false, and that's what we are doing inside of our code. So when you will check our button is form valid, we are providing here exclamation mark. So if form is not valid, then this button is disabled. Okay. So now how I can use computed properties and what are computed properties. So let's create one computed property. Let's scroll down here and actually we can remove all of these lifecycle function. So I will remove before mount to destroyed. So like this, let's remove this. Perfect. And let's create here a new field called computed. And here we can create our computed properties and they look very similar to functions. So I will copy this function isFormValid and let's comment it. And now let's paste it to computed. And now we created just computed property isFormValid. And this computed property is depending on new activity title and a new activity nodes. So whenever these values are changing, also isFormValid is called and it's changing as well. Okay, so don't forget to provide here comma just after this bracket. And let's use this computed property. Let's scroll up here and let's find her button, and it's from valid. Now when it's a computed property, you don't need to provide here brackets, because brackets are for a function call, and you don't need to call a computed property like this. So just right here is from valid. Perfect. And let's go back to our browsers. Okay, I will close this, and when I will open new activity, you can see it behaves exactly same as before. And now you are maybe asking why we are not using function and why we are using here computed properties, and what is the difference between them. So let's go back. And one difference is syntax. As you can see, I don't need to provide here brackets in a computed property, and these behave more than as a property than a function. Okay, this is one difference, but most important difference is in caching. Okay, let's explain it on example. First, I will comment this is from valid computed property, and I will use again our is from valid function. Okay, so uncomment this, and let's write here console log. So console log, and let's write here calling is from valid. Okay, let's comment this code. Let's save this code, and also don't forget, in our button we are providing computed properties, so now we need to provide here brackets, because now it's function again. Okay, let's go back to our browsers, and now I will show you something. Let's inspect this page, open a console, let's clear this out, and let's click here new activity. Calling is from valid. As you can see, now we are calling this function because we just displayed our component, and we are checking if form is valid, so this function was called. And now whenever I will change a value, calling is from valid is called. Okay, so we are calling all the time function when we changing its values. Perfect, but now let's see the main difference. When I will cancel this form, and I will open it again, calling is from valid. This function was called again. So whenever I am re-rendering my component, functions are called all the time. It doesn't matter if the values are not changed. So there is no caching in a function. Function will be called all the time, and this is the main difference between a function and a computed property. Computed properties are cached. So when a value will not change in computed property and your component is re-render, your computed property is not called again, and it will use the old value. Okay, so let's prove it. Let's go back here and let's comment our function. Let's comment it, and actually we will not this function, so I will just remove it, and I will use here just computed property. And also let's write here console log. So console log, and a calling is from valid. Calling is from valid. All right, now let's use this computed property. So I will find it, and I will remove brackets because now it's computed property. Okay, perfect. Let's go back to our browsers. Let's refresh this. Let's open. Calling is from valid, so when we're changing values, it's called the same as a function. But now let's see the difference. I will clear this. I will cancel, and I will open it again. Cancel, open, and you can see there is no console log. Perfect. So this is the main difference between a function and a computed property is in a caching. And computed properties are most of the time not that much difficult as a function. You are not specifying that much logic inside of a computed properties. You like to keep them simple. But you will see it later when we will start working on more complicated functionalities. Okay guys, so that should be it from this lecture. In the next lecture we'll continue a little bit more with computed properties and also with watchers. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I hope to see you in the next one.